I'm looking back now. Oh, and Bucky Fuller said back in the 60s that the management or the elite, people would apply for the jobs, like I guess for president of the White House, senators, congressmen, whatever political institutions are happening. People would audition, wouldn't be based on a mass vote. So he had a very practical idea of management. It's like managing the political levels of society, whatever those would be soon. He thought it would not be a mass emotion. A democratic situation would be based on what they call a meritocracy, because it would be so minor. It's not, those things don't affect people once they have cold play and really good food and medicine. They're not controlled so much. But you do need control for the distribution of things, for business, for moving products and environments around. The Evergreens said that a world government would happen, but it would be more on the level of maintaining universal standards for technologies, rather boring, just a bureaucratic function on a global level that all countries would cooperate with. That's where you would have the world government, not this control. So when in 1967, when Rai, the control of expression, returned and disappeared, returned to the plane of essence, or to heaven, or someplace where humans are less imposed upon. Looking in the media, there's been more and more violence and destruction and death and earthquakes, and it doesn't look good on the TV body. But in terms of people's lives, with the computer, they can express so much. And it seems humans love to express verbally and write and visually. They can be happy on very little food if they have the freedom to express themselves and interact with so-called friends. So it's obvious now there's no Rai action in the world other than on the practical level of finance and controlling currencies and the value of currencies, and or keeping that organized. Now, anarchists might say that we don't require that, but these technologies create these environments, and there has to be some kind of bureaucratic orderliness to it. That's all that we have now, and most of them are not operating very efficiently. There's such a topsy-turvy world that there's always ad hoc adjustments all the time. It's like a state of crisis, is maybe the left used to say, crisis management. That's what we are. The final item is the final Illuminati, because we claim to have the solutions on important levels of technology that will loosen up the bureaucratic crisis. Once everybody has the cold play, and who's to say we don't give it away for free? We're not necessarily going to charge for it. There are certain factors that involve with that, but once we get our stuff out there, the world's going to be a very radical place on the bureaucratic management of resources. So on the human level, we call it software expression. We're in a utopia of expression, and Jean Baudrillard is probably one of the best philosophers of that situation. If you look at his book called The Ecstasy of Communication in the mid-'80s, that book, I think 1987, that expresses what was coming with the internet. And so did Finnegan's Wake, which people don't know. The one Illuminati knowledge, in quotes, Illuminati knowledge, I think we have to educate the people about is the role of Finnegan's Wake, because it's a daunting, intimidating book that can't be read. Very hard to read it. If someone knows how to read Finnegan's Wake, then they're not subject to the awe, the rai, the effect of an elite knows how to read Finnegan's Wake and you don't. So it's like Finnegan's Wake is the final text to explain, and have, if people are inclined, show them how to understand it. So then the rai effect of books, which was a big problem, Ion said, and so did McLuhan, that that would be subsumed, arrested by our explaining Finneg's Wake. So that's the importance of Don Thiel's writings. He does a good job in presenting that Finneg's Wake as a breakthrough manifesto for everybody. Let's see, what else? Oh, that's the software level. The hardware level is food and energy. And we're offering solutions for those structures. So the bureaucratic hardware level is where people really want the revolution now. They don't need it. They're trying to organize their expression to create a revolutionary or some kind of scenario. There's right, left, and center groups trying to take over the White House or some major institution like that in Europe to implement a redistribution of the hardware resources. And of course, with new technologies, they change the hardware resources all the time. And our Coldplay will be a dramatic change. So I think the hardware world is where the Illuminati used to be, at least since the printing press 500 years ago. So we are the counter Illuminati, the temporary Illuminati on the hardware level. We also are on a software level, but it's very hard for you almost don't want to dominate on the software level. You want to encourage people to interact and communicate on any level. Definitely ION can be an authoritative voice, but it's because depending on your belief structures, your belief in inclinations, you can always say ION's bullshit. Where's ION proving it? I think in the long run, ION will prove what it's saying by the effectiveness of our products, which we got from ION. No question about that. I triggered off the retrieval of ION, but I wouldn't know how to make Coldplay, and I wouldn't know how to make RNA drops or living water, and neither did Carolyn. So that was given to us. So I think what I've said, you might have another question, is a sober statement of what we mean by being the new Illuminati. Of course, when you're on payday and talking about this, there's lots of strange human responses, which leads to a lot of humor. But I'm trying to give a serious statement of what I think we mean by us being the new Illuminati. We're a temporary transitional government, so to speak, a new kind of government that is implementing in this transition period the structures that will eliminate any afterimage or requirement of Illuminati control. So that ION in particular refers to the 418 group. That's ION's term for the present Illuminati or guardians. And they are watching what they're doing and being forced to adapt to what we're doing. So even the 418 group is being affected by this second coming, third and fourth and fifth coming too. I don't think there's anything wrong with the Patriots Bill and the global surveillance, unless it's hijacked by nuts who want to hurt people, which seems to be the case in Mexico recently in the news. And that is a problem. Dave Risser used to tell me that anthropologists, or some anthropologists or somebody who studied First Nations, Aboriginal peoples, they said the one thing they couldn't control or they didn't have a solution for was hate. I guess I don't know if it's an emotion. I don't think Ian calls it an emotion, but the expression of hate seems to be a constant situation in human interaction. So we have to be protected. People want to be protected from the haters, whatever culture perceives that as their enemy. The idea of expressing like the Big Brother George Orwell scenario of people not being able to criticize the government or the leaders of the society, the committees, and in Brave New World, the scenario is people are doped up on soma so they don't attack the authorities because they're in bliss on the soma drug. Either scenario doesn't apply today. There's so much freedom of expression, of speaking back to power, just in commentary on response to major institutional. The CNN puts out a story, and then there's all this yelling back and forth, and a almost terroristic sounding statements in the commentary, but nobody. And in Brave New World, the scenario is people are doped up on soma, so they don't attack the authorities because they're in bliss on the soma drug. Either scenario doesn't apply today. There's so much freedom of expression, of speaking back to power, just in commentary on response to major institutional. The CNN puts out a story, and then there's all this yelling back and forth, and a almost terroristic sounding statements in the commentary, but nobody does too much. Now, nobody, they might criticize that socially, but it's the secret surveillance power's job to say, "Ooh, who's this guy who's really pissed off at Obama and wants to take him out? We'll investigate him." So they keep him under surveillance. If you are going to attack an authority figure, and this is what ION talks about, authority versus power, what's wrong? I don't mind people having authority. In terms of protection, the police functions, they may not, should have authority in the medical levels, psychological levels, mental health levels. People do require some standards, so there are institutions, but more and more people are relying on their own state of awareness, their own state of education and medical education. So there's almost too much information available for people to even wade their selves through that. So the old idea of controlling people by ideas and by lack of choice doesn't apply, unless you get uptight about, well, insurance companies won't address alternative medicine. They won't pay for certain alternative medical therapies. Maybe it's different in other parts of Europe and the world, but if we're just focusing on America as the expression of this utopia or oblivion, or in between, like the vaccination issue, there is a big issue right now. Vaccination. If one has our products, it doesn't matter if you get vaccinated. The product will protect you. The product will protect you better than vaccination. And if the vaccination would hurt you, the product protects you from the vaccination. If you don't want to try our products, then yeah, fight the vaccination, take it, suffer the consequences, either way. So I don't have a problem with police people surveilling people. If it's misused politically, but if the people understand that it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about you or about politically, then it doesn't. You can have pretty relative anarchy of expression and indifference to what's being said about you. But if someone's out to kill Roxana, it's good that there are forces that would protect Roxana. You know what I mean? That you're not aware of. The TV shows show this all the time. The secret CIA teams are stopping world crises that nobody knows about. That's the main drama in those kind of shows. Is a big problem happening. Some town or city is going to be blown up, and the people are going around doing their daily work, and they don't know that the CIA is, or some Mossad or somebody is catching the terrorists. McLuhan called it the community's need to know, probably from the basic self-protection instinct is why you have to have guards, you have to have police, you have to have surveillance and protecting you. It's interesting how the police forces, how right now with the killing of black kids, there's a lot of chaos around that. They say that the cops across the United States have low morale. They don't like the image that the cop is getting from whatever the protesters are complaining about. The protesters don't get any any traction. I don't think they get any success in what they want. So it's a standoff. So it comes down to the individual keeping their cool in relation to this situation.
It is true that what we call the Illuminati, for example, we're aware about
Yeah, that's a good point. And this is what Ion says is the new currency, your spiritual gifts. People are getting more open-minded about alternative ways to be and to manifest their physics. And if it's true that one can go to parallel worlds and be a shapeshifter, the more one can do that, the issues of paranoia that the security services feed off of would be less and less. You can just, if you got a problem in this world, you go to another world. And as these abilities are become the norm, that would solve a lot of issues. Well, we wouldn't be human in the traditional way anymore. So that's another part of what we're doing is we're offering access to these other worlds or awareness of it, get you thinking about it. Maybe through anomalies, you start activating your talents. So that's why I think that's what Ion is really about. Cold fusion is good. Medical solutions are good. And our particular medical solutions are for enhancing your spiritual gifts. They're not just for maintaining a standard of health or wellness that takes you beyond that. So that is the main agenda of ION. They are here to people to retrieve their power, and it means having fantastic abilities, capabilities that humanity has not thought about in general during the print era, at least the last 500 years. Ion says before print, a lot of people could do a lot of different things, and you've talked about the average knowledge base in Mexico among the tribal groups there, or whatever you call them, pre-industrial races. They live in multi dimensions naturally, right? They include it. Maybe it's based on fear. There's a lot of fear around it, but the awareness that you encountered in your environment where you grew up is quite common all over the world. And if we didn't have Coldplay and our medical breakthroughs, we would move towards maybe a GMO modified world, a oil or new forms of energy that people would have to, we call it friction based energies. You still have to pay rent and pay for this stuff that would run out. The mediocre alternative forms of energy that come forward. In that situation, people would not have the slack that full use of all your spiritual talents might bring about. But to the degree that that gets diminished, and you have real amazing alternative energies, alternative fuels, alternative resource batteries, no, not batteries, resource boxes, then people will be freed up to have their spiritual abilities be their currency. So if you think that that's going to come, that's what you can relax on. Maybe there's going to be a struggle for that new reality. I mean, Nostradamus says there's going to be a struggle in the medical world, on the medical level for Carolyn. And the Nostradamus about me has me being a deceitful military general. You know, a sneaky military general is what laid out for me. That'll be fun. So it sounds like there's going to be a bit of a fight in the transition, but you know the way people that you know, they have big effects on masses through the media. There's all kinds of people being inspired by different guru figures, and maybe they're still giving their power away to the guru, but people are really starting to think and act differently in response to the old fear mechanisms and worrying about what happens to you after you die. There's definitely a change in the world over the last 40 years on that level. More and more people are atheists or non-believers, but they're not limited to a lack of spirituality. They're interested in otherworldly, what I call the astral body matters. They're interested in the mystery body situation. one can be pretty relaxed about where the world's going.
Yes.
But we will not. Wait a minute. Yes, but we're not relaxing completely. Right? We're not just going off into our soma. So we're on duty too. We stay on duty. We keep up on the terrible things that you know about, that your friends keep telling you about. And you have to delete their emails, but they keep telling you the bad stuff, and you pass it on.
Another thing that always justified this power of a special elite was, for example, the acceptance that they had another type of blood. They are descendants from some type of deity. In some cases were like dragons or the sun or...
Yeah, that's another good point. The physical basis for an elitism, special, like royalty would marry in what's it called, inbreeding, marry within the elites. So you have this bloodline mythology, which people seem to preserve through history, and now our products alter the blood. When I was in Nice, France, last summer, August 2014, I went to Madame Rothschild's mansion, and she was queen of the European social scene, 1900, 1910. Yeah, that was in Nice, I think. And it was so dinky, her mansion, compared to what we have today, that the benefits of being wealthy made one comfortable back then, but that nowadays there's so much what McLuhan calls software communism. Free wealth, free experience, relatively free. Any of the elite offerings are ridiculous, like going to the best restaurant and having some elite meal. I find the servings in that level of cuisine are puny compared to what I can get from Carolyn, what she can make. So I don't find the benefits of being wealthy in the traditional way of more comfort for your body, better food, better sex, or better better opera, better entertainment or storytellers, better intellectual intelligence being communicated to you. That doesn't apply anymore. That's why there's no difference between high culture and low culture. Everybody can pick a kind of culture that resonates with their personality and where they're at. So the old definition of wealth and the benefits that come from elitist wealth that a bloodline has access to would be part of the old Rai imagery. The wealth that anybody has today on many levels, you can be a couch potato and have a great time doing that, just reading whatever garbage they present on TV. And you can have a situation where you don't have to work and you're on welfare. You can have a lazy, fun life, have your mind stimulated or your emotions stimulated. There's no judgment factor on that level anymore. The last expression of art on that level would be pop art and the Andy Warhol and conceptual art of the 60s, where, as McLuhan said, a part of your environment or one of your many environments becomes an art form. That would be the final elitist definition of what art is. Nowadays, people don't require an elitist definition. The elitist definition now would mean, are you aware of pretty interesting information? And we certainly are the leading edge of that. Our information is the most unique and advanced and stunning in the world. Just listening to I Am Perform verbally is amazing, plus the other levels I Am Perform. So you are poor in the world of art if you don't know about us. And most people don't. But on the general mass level, people have so much wealth around them. So the benefits of being an elitist, I mean, basically the Rothschilds got into financial trouble in the 70s, and they're not as powerful anymore. The Rockefellers got in trouble. They had to manage the old kind of wealth in a hyper-computerized, super angelic, discarnate, disembodied digital matrix that it became a problem being traditionally wealth. wealthy. So that would be something that people need to be, kids would be educated on, so-called kids, what youth are there. They would be educated. Status don't apply anymore. There's a new kind of status, which could be a violent image. You lead a hood, you lead a gang, you kill people, and you get drugs, and you make funny videos and celebrate your so-called power. That'd be a kind of wealth that's available for people, and that may be based on sheer hate or sheer human instinct, or education about what we're offering. Would change people on that level, and the kids could have a different idea of what was wealth. It seems today the main wealth that young people are involved in is the emotional multitude. They want to be part of some kind of big celebration like this TV show Glee. You probably don't know about Glee. And American Idol, that's a kind of emotional multitude that people want to be part of. And anybody can. And sophisticated, alienated intellectuals could say, well, that's a waste of time. That's delusion, distraction. I don't think we can figure out how much we're being distracted, since the Android meme, in a way, has taken on a life of its own in providing all this entertainment, edutainment, information overload, information variety. Certainly there's no place for the mind in its traditional ways of functioning. The mind doesn't have any priority anymore on that level. To use your mind, or what Einstein calls the labyrinth of your mind, in relation to your physical and non-physical, is the new game, the new form of improvisation. Like we on payday use our minds, but it's an accident almost. We're using our minds as a joke, for pattern recognition, for the pleasure of aesthetic symmetry in whatever one can communicate. And that's a major factor. You could say that Rai is the mind, the speaking mind, the alphabetic mind, the writing, the authoritative mind. There's no basis for that kind of charisma anymore. And of course, many people find that hard to handle. What to do with their minds until Bob gets here, you know.
And then there is true that there is like a elite of the elite, like the most elite, the most ascended, which Ion has told us about, like the elders and the ascended ones. And what I've heard that, for example, they engage only in their own pleasure, and it seems to me that what you were talking about, this emotional multitude.
Emotion of multitude.
Emotion of multitude is more like a little man thing. Is like very tribal, like it's like all these rituals and the sports and something they need to be turned on because they are so numbed with the environment that they need this big
spectacles.
Yes, a stimulus that to feel alive, and because their lives might be so boring and they're numbed also by the environment. But yes, talk more about this the most elite.
Well, I love talking about myself, so I love talk. the mass numbness, the desire to get stimulated in a big crowd is a pleasure. There's a lot of maybe ascended people in the crowds at big sporting events. Remember, Ian says that the world's population is at 7 billion because there's so many people from other worlds coming here. They're not arriving through the normal means of being born. And the way Ian lays it out, there's millions of ascended people. And it seems that interaction with culture and sports and games and art and music and everything is a pleasure. And the ascended person goes where it likes. So we can't judge who's being stupid in the mass stimulation, in the spectacle. And those that are require the little men who are neurotically need to be stimulated that way, definitely their kids and grandkids aren't that way anymore. We've seen with the hippies, well, the baby boomers and the Generation X, and maybe Generation Y, people eventually give up because they didn't have the Bob knowledge and the ion products and fall into this mass need to be stimulated kind of laziness. But more and more of the kids, if you talk to them or watch them, the 10-year-olds, they are into their own form of entertainment. They celebrate not being part of the mass phenomenon. The only mass phenomenon they seem to want to be part of is some image of changing the world. They want to make the world better in many ways. And they're naive about how the world can be made better or about what better would be since there's so much ecstasy is available now anyways. I mean, that's on my tiny note chart in the Dobbs quadrant. It's not panic or paranoia or schizophrenia or hysteria, it's ecstasy. Ecstasy has been growing its stock over the last 50 years incredibly. People live in all kinds of ecstatic situations now. Even in painful situations, they enjoy that. So you got more and more of these younger people aware of a lot of the dynamic and are not conditioned by the old kind of emotional multitude. So I see the autonomy of what the young people, and especially like autism, there's young people refusing to even engage verbally with their immediate environment. So as people become more and more autistic on a healthy level, they will require more spectacle just to get relief from their autistic autonomy. So it works both ways. More and more autonomy is happening, more decentralization, and more centralization or mass spectacle. You, being trained to be an elite musically, are not used to that kind of enjoyment. You never were in sports. You never were in mass spectacle interests, right? You, at best, you were interested in a musical phenomenon, maybe an orchestra or some kind of group emotion that comes out of a musical event. But you've learned from McLuhan to look at low culture as something that you can get mind patterns out of, get interesting transient insights from. So here in the gated communities in the United States, you'll see parents try to send their kids to elite schools and have elite schooling. They don't want them in the public schools, and they're holding on to some kind of high culture ideal for their kids. I mean, it's amazing how many kids have braces on their teeth. You know, they all got to have braces because they got to have beautiful teeth because they're all going to be photogenic and on the cover of Vanity Fair someday or something. And this is the fantasy of their parents. I think the kids rebel. They can't help if they've been put into an elite junior high school, grades 6 up to 12, some kind of elite institution. They will be on the internet rebelling against it automatically. They're not going to go for it. So there's very little role for teachers and parents anymore. Now, you reminded me of something. When you went to the McLuhan Salon, the embassy, here were these students, 20-year-olds, being very passive and listening to this boring lecture and boring panel and not being very creative in response to it. I detect that they are allowing themselves to fit into the totalitarian aspect of institutions to cover their asses for getting a job or what they think could be a job. But they privately aren't like that. They're very creative with their YouTubes or with their chip body and their TV body privately. But they don't show that in that public seminar that you witnessed. To me, the kids are more and more double and triple agents. They're hiding what's really going on in themselves. You see what I'm saying? And they'll go into an old format like a panel, a symposium, and they'll act very obedient and actually be dull. I think they're thinking a lot differently about that, and they're keeping it to themselves. So they're 1/5 of themselves, their chemical body self, is putting up with the fascism, the cultural fascism, or the old-fashioned, okay, I don't know nothing, you know more than me, I'm going to listen to you, professor, and you're going to tell me some wonderful thing that you're learning in the government or in science. There's a lot of fakery going on. I went to a media ecology association, a bunch of professors, 98 or so, and one of the professors gave a talk. I'll pretend to teach and you pretend to be a student. That's how far education had become so decentralized that the professors even knew it was a put on and they were kind of obsolete. And so it was an honest presentation. I'll pretend to teach and you pretend to be a student. That's part of the theater. People are pretending to be students. They're pretending to be young. They're pretending to be all these ways that the chemical body defined reality and ruled for a while. But more and more it doesn't. So people, if they're listening to this, they should be quite excited at the wonderful potential that we have today. And there's no need to be morose and depressed and feeling at wit's end about the suicidal end of the species. No, it's a wonderful world. And you just have to enjoy who you're with, in the sense that if you're talking to somebody on a bus, in a train, or in the classroom, some stranger, take an interest in them and just listen to what they're saying. Don't be a snob about social interaction.
But maybe it's because they're used to interact in another way. Maybe if they had if there was like a forum where they can text what they're thinking or their questions on, instead of talking, they will participate more. Yeah. Because they're more used to text than talking.
Yeah, that's a good point. They engage in thinking and express themselves on forums all the time, whatever forms they access on their texting and on their iPhones and their computers. It really is old-fashioned to have a panel, a bunch of chemical bodies presenting their expertise and arguing within their realms of expertise. Most people don't respond to that anymore unless they're interested in something, in a particular product, technology, or belief structure. They'll engage in panels about that, but they don't expect it to be translated into a democratic, across the board, everybody get on the same page and start a revolution. They don't expect that. They expect that they can go to any, what I call matrix tube, any hologramic community and engage it and do it in traditional ways of question and answer, and someone having more knowledge than you, and you learn from them. But that doesn't apply to the actual way we live with our 5 and 6 bodies now. That's just a subset. It's a hobby to engage in that kind of old-fashioned communication. So yeah, you're right. The kids, if they didn't have to show up in person, which is happening in education, more and more education is going digital, right? People learn on their own with their computers. So the anti-environment to that would be to continue talking, presenting an environment of interesting, unpredictable talk, spontaneous talk, which we provide on payday with ION. ION is there with an endless voice, endless response to whatever is said, in different ways of responding to, either intervals of silence or excessive verbosity. Ion covers the waterfront, does it all. That kind of social interaction is what we encourage. That's why we say we're here to help you talk right. If the kids tend to be not very good in the chemical body, tending not to speak, they don't have anything to say, they don't know how to do social interaction, well, my show, What Youth, is providing an environment to that or a solution to it. And many other people are providing forms for people to speak in, physically in the chemical body level or on the digital level. But nobody has the endless, frictionless babble that ion can create. Nobody has the endless fountain. It's almost like cold fusion of the mouth that ion has. That should be an interesting phenomenon that one would want to engage with. So,
yes, you were saying, for example, the Illuminati control the.
Control what?
Yeah, you said, for example, the resources and the energy sources, but also they used to control all medias and all new technologies. But we're arriving to a point, as you say, where book is obsolete since Finnegan's Wake, and the education as we know it is also obsolete, and I think the younger people see they make a lot of debt studying, and they don't find a job, and they're pursuing what Ion calls pate, like what is it? I mean, to own things or have money is not completion. It's not being in your power. So it's actually at the end useless.
Ion says the reason they came forth was there was many ascended people here in this world, wherever this world is, which Ion says is nowhere or now here. They didn't tell anybody about their ascension. They kept it to themselves. Ion is here that's the final secret, is that there are these abilities that your neighbors, if they're ascended, are doing, and you don't know about it. So we're the final revealing of what the Illuminati was capable of doing. And so that's our democratic impulse, is that we've come forth to reveal the most secrets that not because they couldn't be done, but because the people who could do them kept them to themselves. So we're offering the final education about these abilities you can develop. And we give you products that stimulate that, speed up that. For young people doing obsolete education for a weak job market, they've got to figure out ways to improvise a way of trading with themselves. And I've read that's a new trend past a year or two, reading about the bad economy in Athens, Greece, and the young people are creating their own system of alternative tourism. And it's good that there are forces that would protect Roxana.